Hey everyone, welcome to the Weeaboos, the monthly podcast where we get drunk and talk about anime. I'm Kyle.
It's your boy, Justin!
I'm Hunter. I had no idea how to respond to that. How do you follow that up?
Hunter, what are we drinking?
I don't even remember the brand, but I know it's a raspberry lager. And
It
it's
is a
very
raspberry
interesting,
lager.
right? We don't even know the brand. Oh, it's called like Love Thirst.
Sure.
Holy shit.
Something similar to that. It may not have been Love Thirst, but
We'll say it is. That's what it is now.
all right, it's
Love
Love Thirst raspberry.
Yep.
guys
And I
can't
like
just-
it. It's really interesting. I've never had a lager with this like sweetness in it. So,
Yeah, anything that has fruit in it always is kind of interesting.
all right then. So, if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, here's a quick rundown of the show. Each episode, each of us shares one thing that we love about anime. It could be a trope, a voice actor, a song, an experience, as long as it's something we truly enjoy. Anything goes. Afterwards, we answer a listener question, followed by our opinions on what we're currently watching. However, we're going to be implementing a new rule. So, after last month's episode, the guys admitted that they were having trouble coming up with topics. The opportunity to talk about literally anything was so daunting that no one was ever quite sure what they should talk about. So, in an effort to narrow down topic selection, I decided to theme our episodes. I compiled a huge list of literary themes, sent it to the guys, and they unanimously agreed on the word change, meaning everyone's topic, whether it be literally, abstractly, or figuratively, will somehow be related to change. Also, I have a very important announcement to make regarding the podcast, but because it's sort of a vibe killer, I'm going to wait until after we share our topics to give the update. If anyone finds that too suspenseful, I will do my best to remember to put a timestamp in the show notes so you can skip to that first. But I suggest just sticking with us and allowing the narrative of the podcast to flow naturally.
It was all a dream. Used to read Word Up magazine.
What are you doing?
What?
When you said change, that's what I thought of.
Is that a song? Are you referencing a song?
Yeah, that's Biggie Smalls.
Oh,
That's the Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, we're really into Biggie.
well, Biggie's good, you know.
Biggie is good. Better than Smalls. Alright, guys, I'm sorry. I'm done. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done.
Better than that 3-pot guy.
Okay.
With all that being said, I'll go ahead and start us off. Anime has never been the most forward-thinking medium in regards to the portrayal and representation of non-traditional gender roles or sexual orientations. Rather than simply creating good stories with a genitively varied cast of characters, sexual diversity in anime is predominantly reserved for niche subgenres. Subgenres that are steeped in homoeroticism, yet ironically target a straight demographic. While I'm sure there are plenty of viewers of various sexual orientations who love watching the girls in Sakura Trick kiss each other just as much as I do, I'm doubtful anyone is content with having their identity be primarily depicted as nothing more than a fetish. When a single aspect of one's individuality, such as race, gender, or even something as comparatively insignificant such as a hobby, is the manifestation of a character, that is not a character. That is a stereotype. Now, there are a handful of anime that display a clear understanding of how gender and sexuality correlate with the sense of self, exemplifying that a character is not always defined by their sexuality, but that a character's sexuality, or lack thereof, is merely one aspect of who they are. Anime like Evangelion, Devilman, Madoka Magica, Utena, Hibika Euphonium, Horamusko, and, unintentionally, Ranma 1/2. So who's here familiar with Ranma 1/2?
I'm not. I've heard of it,
I've
and
never
it's
heard
pretty
of Ronald
popular.
McDonald.
So,
Ronald McDonald?
I don't know, man. I heard ramen.
Ranma.
you have a problem with your ears. So, Ranma 1/2 is a manga created by Rumiko Takahashi that was adapted into an anime in 1989. The story follows Ranma, a teenage boy who is mastering his family's fighting style of what they call anything goes martial arts, which is exactly what it sounds like. As he and his father are training in China, Ranma falls into a cursed lake that causes him to change into a girl when splashed with cold water and back into a boy when doused with hot water. Unable to break the curse, they return to Japan, where Ranma's father reveals that he has arranged for Ranma to marry the daughter of his friend in order to secure the future of the Anything Goes School of Martial Arts. So the rest of the anime revolves around Ranma and his fiancée, who hates men, Akane, taking part in ridiculous martial arts tournaments as they deal with gender-bending hijinks while somehow accidentally acquiring more fiancés in the process. In relation to
Sounds
this,
like a really complicated show.
it's not like that is all episode 1. Everything else is hijinks. That's
wacky.
just
How wacky is it?
very wacky.
Nice.
Sounds like it was ahead of its time. I mean, gender bending, like
A little bit. But in relation to this episode's theme of change, I simply love the show's core concept regarding Ranma's ability to transform between genders and how it doesn't take advantage of its own premise. Ranma 1/2 is an anime that's sexual in nature, yet neglects to address its own sexuality. While some people look back at Ranma 1/2 as their first exposure to gender bending and body swapping, by the time I had finally got around to watching it in my late teens, it was a trope I had grown familiar with. But what surprised me about Ranma 1/2, despite it having both nudity and fan service, was how it always seemed to somehow circumvent eroticism. Gender-bending anime are inherently sexual. Yamada and the Seven Witches, Comfort, even the world-renowned Your Name all include a seemingly required boob-groping scene. But unlike those examples, Ranma never lingers on nudity or focuses on potentially suggestive content to the same extent as other more lecherous shows. Rather than showing interest in exploring his female body, Ranma is more concerned at how this curse affects his ability as a martial artist, as well as his daily life. He loves being able to manipulate people with his newfound girlish charm, but hates being romantically pursued by men. He's simply trying to go through daily life while struggling with swapping genitalia. If Ranma identifies as a straight male while inside the body of a female, this is a series that can be interpreted as a story of a trans boy experiencing gender dysphoria. And while that's clearly not the intention of the series on account of its misogynistic and homophobic tendencies, the fact that it can be perceived in such a way is incredibly fascinating to me. The fluidity of interpretation paired with the power of association grants media the ability to hold an infinite amount of meaning. I think it's a good practice to view stories through multiple mindsets and actively change your perspective in an effort to understand what they might mean to other people.
So really the change here is changing genders entirely. Like
It's that
really,
simple.
really big change.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like a instantaneous change?
Yeah.
And everyone around's just like, oh, that was weird.
Well, it's interesting. He tries to keep it a secret for the most part, which only encourages this secretive sexual identity. Like, this is a very apparent curse to people that he's close to, primarily Akane.
you said the show was made in the 80s,
89?
Yeah.
That's really crazy because, gender fluid is such a relevant topic now, just this idea of like this subsect of society being like, yeah, this is a thing and you have to respect it.
Right.
And back in the 80s, early 90s, that wasn't a thing, and obviously it wasn't intended to be like that.
Right. Because this is, to a certain extent, I mean, there is nudity in it, like actual nudity, but the nudity faded the longer the series went on. Because it gained so much popularity, especially with younger audiences, they leaned off of the nudity and just more so into the comedy aspect. But the appeal of this controversial topic just seemed very natural and funny. Controversy was hidden within comedy, and it worked. It worked really well. So we can choose to perceive this anime as something that, a trans person can identify with. And also just a 10-year-old boy could be like, this is really funny and actiony, and, I like the fan service in it. And, I think it's like the most widely accepted trans story, even though it's unintentional.
It almost seems like a happy accident, to quote Bob Ross.
Yes. Yeah.
So essentially it started as just kind of people swap bodies, you know, and they happen to be different genders. This one sounds a little bit different in the sense that it's the same person as opposed to two different characters
Correct,
swapping left and right. But you know, it just seemed like this was just a way to go into the comedy, and you know, that was just kind of the plot of the story, but it turned into so much more than that.
Yeah, very much. So, do any of you want to go?
My talk was kind of twofold. Basically, when I heard change, I think all of us, right when we heard it, we were like, character development, characters change. And then all of us were like, no, that's too boring. Everyone else is going to think of that. So we all decided not to go with that topic, which I think is kind of funny.
Except for Kevin, but he's not here.
Fucking Kevin. Anyway, so it's kind of twofold in how my perception of anime has personally changed, and then how the world's perception of anime has kind of changed. So I'm going to kind of keep this to the last decade, because I think that, unlike you guys, I didn't really have the whole watching Toonami and like seeing Dragon Ball Z. Like, yeah, that was part of it, but I wasn't like enticed or engrossed in it, and you know, thought that there was this mystical thing. I thought it was just kind of wacky cartoons, right? I thought it was just like Rocko's Modern Life and Cat Dog, right? Just a different cartoon.
You weren't part of the anime gang.
I was not part of Anime Gang.
Nope.
With the tape on the wall, or the Sharpie
No,
marker?
Sharpie.
Sharpie marker on the wall. Anime
Multiple
Gang.
places.
Tagged up that high school.
Yep. They knew about us. Screw the Bloods and the Crips, man. Anime gang.
Anime
gang.
gang.
Anime Gang. Do you guys have a gang sign?
Oh, yeah. AG.
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 It's doable.
Yeah, it's totally doable.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, so I actually got into anime probably, I want to say 2013 or 14. And it was just like, I would be playing StarCraft with friends, and they would all be talking about anime, and I'd be like, guys, what the fuck is this crap? Like, you guys are still watching cartoons? Like, no, dude, it's different. Like, just watch one. And I had, you know, I picked Gurren Lagann, and I've told this story before, that I picked Gurren Lagann and watched it, really enjoyed it. But even when I had started, I had this perception about anime that it was, you know, I would only ever like a subset of it. That some of it was just too far out there for me, right? You know, my perception has changed, but when I thought of people actually sexualizing like lolly characters, that actually like sickened me. I was like, this is a thing? People are actually, you know, into this, and that people, you know, would actually watch shows just because they're ecchi, just because they're over sexualized, just for the sake of it. I thought that was saying it now, I'd feel like a dick, but you know, I would look down on people like that. If I saw an anime shirt, just like, you know, I would say some of the world would do now, I would look at it and be like, wow, that guy's like, that dude's into some weird stuff. He's going to be kind of a social outcast because he's, you know, showing off that he enjoys something that most people perceive as taboo, basically. As I started watching more anime, I started realizing that it's really easy to separate reality from fiction and to just enjoy a story for what it is. Like, you know, I've now watched High School of the Dead, Prison School. You can watch stuff that's like really sexual, and you know, it's not really that weird. Like, I totally understand it. I'm not somebody that's actually like going out there and sexualizing them to like a really high extent, but I do get where it stems from. I actually understand it now, and I don't think it's weird anymore. And I guess the second part of what I wanted to talk about was the world's perception, which I almost think is just a slowed down version of what I'm going through. So I think that the world still perceives ecchi and like lolly and some of the more taboo topics as just that, taboo. Even, you know, to stay off the sexual theme, stuff that's like extra gory, like where people are getting cut in half, losing limbs, a lot of blood. We were watching that Mad, and there was some dude getting stabbed in the eye with like a screwdriver earlier.
Yeah, Perfect Blue.
Yeah, Perfect Blue. So, you know, I think people still have an aversion to that, but I do think that it's been changing. I talked to Kyle about this earlier, is that, you know, there's actually a good amount of my friends that I've met at work that I can talk openly about anime with. And, you know, we'll all play basketball, and I make so many Kuroko references that it's not even funny. Like, and I'll be able to talk with people and be like, oh yeah, that guy's you know, that guy's a Kuroko, that guy's Aomine, you know, you compare people to the characters, and it's not seen as like, oh, that guy's a fucking anime watcher, you know, I don't even want to hang out with him. People are like, will look at that and they'll not really understand it, but they'll either ask a question, and when I say, oh, it's an anime, it's, you know, this is what it's called, this is what we're referencing, they're like, oh, that's cool. Even people that so there's this like 37-ish, like late 30s, maybe early 40s, Indian girl that we work with. And me and one of my coworkers were talking about the initial D, and she's like, "Oh, that sounds cool. What's that?" We're like, "It's a cartoon show about drifting cars." She's like, "Oh, maybe I'll watch it." I'm like, "Sure you will." But I don't feel bad openly talking about it anymore, even if the perception still tends toward not revealing everything I've watched. And I think that's something I still struggle with, is that if I talk with somebody and I say I like anime, I'm going to go safe, right? I like Shingeki no Kyojin, and I like Steins Gate, and I like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I'm not going to open and be like, "Yo, you seen Prison School? Have you seen it? I've seen the OVAs. It's great." Or, "Have you seen Oraimo? Kill la Kill? This shit's great." I'm not confident enough in myself to say, to go out and, reveal to people that I watch like ecchi shows, or that I watch anything that's like remotely sexual in nature, or anything other than like shonen-y action, family friendly ish to an extent, right?
I think that's super interesting. I can't really speak for you in terms of your personal change of perception in regards to anime, because everyone's different. In fact, like,
oh, something to add to that. I had a friend, went to college with him, met him in college, but he would wear a High School of the Dead shirt that was like really sexual. It was just Psycho in like lingerie with like the sword between her cleavage.
sure,
or something,
I can
right?
picture it. Yeah.
And I'm like, I felt like this dude's gonna get fucking like laughed out of, like, people are going to literally stop him in the like crosswalks and like laugh at him. That's how bad I thought it was gonna be. And then walking along with him, it's like nobody gives a shit. Like,
Yeah,
people
sure.
just do not care. Like, spotlight effect like crazy when you're doing something even remotely unique. People are just not big enough dicks to go out of their way to like give you shit about what you're wearing or what you're into.
Yeah,
Especially in college, though. Like, people wear like their like basketball shorts. Like, they don't give a fuck.
But I was saying, I can't really speak for you in terms of your personal growth and personal perception of anime over time. That's unique to everyone. And I think we have a listener question that, to a certain extent, kind of goes into that. But I do think societal's perception of anime is, like, that is a idea that is eternally interesting to me. First of all, you said you're only talking about the past decade, but, like,
because that's what I'm, that's where I've known about anime the most.
Yeah, of course. But, and me too, to a certain extent. But that just goes to show there are generations that date back like way further than us, and back to the days where people would have to exchange bootleg VHS tapes in like college circles. And like
in a dark alleyway. Like, do you have the new Haruhi episode?
Well, you say Haruhi, but back in those times,
Do you have the new Ranma 1/2 episode?
Yeah, Ranma 1/2. That's what it was.
I heard this guy has Akira on VHS.
I mean, you joke, but
No,
to my
that's
understanding,
legitimately,
it was really like that. Like, college clubs would trade these VHS tapes, and it was similar to drug dealing. And I would love more than anything to get someone 20 years older than me on the podcast and talk about that on the show. That is an incredibly fascinating portion of anime history that we take for granted. Now we get upset when subs are 10 minutes late, to
Holy
be
shit,
released.
480p? Get the fuck out of here.
So that's just one aspect that's interesting to me. And then the other, I know you didn't really like intend to focus on sexualization, but it goes into what you were saying about your friend, how like nobody cares. It's just, why are we ashamed of like the sexualization of anything? Like, it's just a part of life and a part of story. Like, why isn't it ingrained in
Right,
more
why
stories?
can't I wear my damn, like, cute kitten anime girl drinking milk shirt?
Yeah, I know.
Have that?
Yeah, I do.
It's an Elmo Cat shirt. But like,
I have that shirt. I wore it to the podcast once. I've never worn it since. Grace wears it as a freaking, like, sleep shirt. That's it.
so I also think, although it's slow, the acceptance of sexuality, sexualization, is a thing that's kind of occurring, but like it still needs a big shove in the right direction.
Like, why is it okay to have, like the sexy stripper outline sticker on trucks,
Yeah.
but not, an anime girl?
Right. So that's another
Free the
concept.
waifu.
But yeah, that's another concept that's just really interesting, is the shyness of sexualization, and how we tend to shun it and even hide it from media. We did a whole episode on anime characters without nipples, which is just a huge thing that upsets me.
Well, and then
Censorship.
One thing I see is that anime can go into taboos, and you have to separate fact from fiction. And there's stuff that's, you have girls that are 14, 13, whatever, or younger getting sexualized in these shows. And as far as our legal system is concerned, that's not okay. So I understand these portions of it, but I mean, let's say right here we have the Evangelion girls. Why is sexualizing them versus sexualizing a movie actress any different? Like, why do we have this aversion because it's not real?
I mean, we've talked about it before. It has a little bit to do with the idea that cartoons are for children. And when we see cartoonized porn, that juxtaposition between something for children and something for adults combined into one medium, it's really off-putting or unsettling to a lot of people. I think that has a lot to do with that concept.
Well, it's always been an interesting topic.
It is. It's fascinating.
Because it's a topic that's so prevalent in life, but also the most hidden thing about us at all times.
Yes.
So it's always interesting to dig into that.
Definitely.
Well, it's interesting as Americans looking at this Japanese medium, because their culture is different, although there's a lot of similarities, just because of people. We're Americans with our culture observing this media that is an entirely different culture. And then that's why these things seem taboo, because, you have, cute things are more fetishized or enjoyed over there, and you bring that here and people are like, that's weird. I've had people tell me Japanese culture is really weird.
Well, that has a lot to do with decontextualization. We are not ingrained in Japanese culture. So when we see things out of context for just brief moments, even an entire series, there's part of that that's just ingrained in Japanese culture. And it's not possible for us as Americans to understand all the nuances within that show.
And I've seen this both on YouTube and firsthand. I talked a little bit about it when I got back from Japan. Was that they seem to be a little bit more okay with it. They'll lines and people are being really nice to each other, and purchasing hentai mags in a shop. And I saw this YouTube video, and it was about the guy that had invented tentacle manga.
Sure.
And it was him.
He's been at Anime Expo a few times, yeah.
Has he? But it's him showing off some of his works to this other lady in a restaurant, just with other people around. And he's just he's got these. They're really big blueprints. Basically, he's unrolling them. He's this is one of my first ones, and the camera pans to it, and half of it's censored out. And you're wow, that is probably a very graphic image, right? But he's just he's this is what I do, and this is he's just not ashamed of it at all, and I respect that.
Why don't you go, Justin?
All right. Like Hunter kind of said, it was difficult to come up with a topic that wasn't so played out, because there's great examples of character change, but it's really boring.
Your boy Simo.
You say it's boring. I think any of you could have talked about a character change and it would have been good.
Yeah, no, talking about Simon would have been great, because he radically transforms and it's great. But I wanted to find something that was more touching to me.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Because I feel that's a typical a go-to, right? I think all of us, I don't know about you, but I was Gurren Lagann. Yeah. Gurren Lagann, yes. I don't know how the hell Kevin came up with guts.
Yeah, so earlier,
Kevin... The dog from Kill la Kill.
Kevin suggested or alluded to how he wanted to talk about Guts from Berserk and how he changed. But, in the back of my mind, I think I disagree. Because as I was talking to Justin earlier, when I think of Guts in the beginning of Berserk, he is just this big, strong, badass guy who cuts up people. And when I think of him currently, he is still a big, strong, badass guy who cuts up people. And that's not to say he does not change, because he does, but not to the extent as some other characters maybe Simon from Gurren Lagann. So anyways, what is your topic?
I've been watching Megalobox. And I watched... Wow. You want to be friends?
Sure.
Sick. You want to do karate in the garage? Okay.
Yes.
So I've been watching that, and I watched episode 6 today. You know, it was really exciting because obviously, you know, this is the first fight that has meant something. It's like a very strong opponent that he has to overcome. And the reason I chose to talk about this is because in the last 5 minutes, Arigaka. Hold on, I had it. Help me.
So much time.
I know.
Arigaki?
Arigaki.
Aragaki?
I think it's Arigaki.
Aragaki.
Oh, that was kind of close. So Arigaki goes through a extreme transformation in like a span of 5 minutes. You know, the story of him was so touching the whole way through. It was so like intense, you know, and it just wraps up amazingly. Like I felt very deep and emotional when I was watching it. You know, when in the moment he's saying, "For me, today starts tomorrow."
That might have been the quote. I think ultimately it boiled down to
Tomorrow starts today.
tomorrow starts today.
Yes.
You know, in other words, you know what that meant to me is live for tomorrow.
Yes. It was great to see this change, see him as a young fighter with Nambu. You guys, every time I say something Japanese, you guys look at me really funny.
You said it twice and then looked at me like you were asking for my like reassurance.
So no, go ahead.
So you see him training with Nambu, and then he goes to war and he experiences extreme traumatic, you know, stress and
PTSD.
yeah, and you see that aspect of him, and he channels it through megaloboxing, and he progresses past where he was. You know, despite losing his legs in his physical form changing, he adapts and kind of channels his frustration into this sport. And you think that he is, you know, really angry, and he is really angry, and he's trying to make sense of the world. And then at the end of the episode, you know, just that slugfest between him and Joe was just so rewarding, you know, to see them both put everything that they had out there, and Joe to like overcome everything. And then you don't even realize it while it's happening, but Arigaki is dealing with all the stress and trauma that he's dealt with, and he moves past it, and he's able to forgive himself and forgive Nambu and everyone that, you know, has wronged him per se, and he gives everything up in order to move on and changes. I mean, that was really touching to me when he like forgives Nambu and, you know, he's ready to move on.
There was a point in the episode where Joe and his trainer are talking about like how they thought Aragaki was, you know, intending to just beat the hell out of Joe right in front of him to get revenge. But I think by the end of the series, and this is up to interpretation, or the end of the episode, that all Aragaki wanted was to show Nanbu how far he's come. He wanted to prove to himself, you know, like a child to a father, that he didn't need him, that he has become strong on his own. And I really admired that aspect about the show, or the episode. But the entire concept of living for tomorrow, giving up today to have a future, is a really moving mentality, especially compared to Aragaki's very focused, strenuous past of just constant fighting and war and turmoil.
Yeah.
You know, finally relinquishing himself after putting everything he's done into himself and his fighting, to know when he's had enough, to feel like he's proven himself and his worth, and then to say that he's done. You know, that was really powerful.
It was, and especially, you know, why I gravitated towards so much is there was an experience in my life that was, you know, it's not the same, but to me, it's like that moment for me of losing everything and just having your whole entire life come crashing down around you, and you have to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you have to give up everything that you've known in order to move past that, so that you can have a brighter future and get out of this dark place that you're in. So when I saw him do that, I was like, wow, like this takes me back to 3 years ago when I was at the lowest point in my life, and like, you know, I had to make a hard decision in order to move past that point. So it was, you know, it was cool to see that kind of depth in a show and have it be portrayed in a way that was moving, you know, not just to me, but to many people.
Well, don't start crying yet. Speaking of change, no, I love you guys. I have an announcement to make. So I've decided to put the podcast on hiatus. About 8 months ago, we transitioned from a weekly to a monthly schedule in order to give myself time to focus on life stuff as well as independent projects like my videos. But nothing ever really changed. I'm still working at the same job, and I'm still focusing primarily on podcasting. The lack of change is due to my refusal to create anything half-heartedly. I have far too much respect for you, our listeners, to give you a podcast consisting entirely of thoughtless, drunken rambling. I like to think we provide you with thoughtful, drunken rambling. And that ability to interject arguable meaningfulness into an otherwise disorderly podcast is a result of our dedication. Research, idea generation, writing, solidifying opinions on airing anime, helping the guys flesh out their own topics, all of these preparations take place during brief moments of free time in between projects at my job. And while it's tough, I love every minute of it. This podcast is my outlet to talk about strangely specific concepts I would never be able to express in any other sort of medium. Plus, it's a great excuse to get drunk and hang out with my friends. But I'm tired.
We can still do that.
We definitely can still do that. But I'm tired of not experiencing any sort of growth. Not just in terms of viewership. I've already come to terms with the fact that podcasts are just inherently unpopular. But in regards to personal growth, I want to create something truly outstanding. Not just create for the sake of creating. I want to make something timeless. We're less than a month away from our podcast's 2-year anniversary, and I can't help but feel like so much of our hard work is trapped in a form of passive media. This hiatus is not a result of feeling defeated, tired, or fed up. It's stemming from the desire to create something better. So I honestly don't know about the future of the weeaboos. At the very least, I can say I don't want the weeaboos to go away. I love having a podcast. It will continue to exist. There are several questions I want to answer and topics I still want to cover in the future. I've even been toying with the idea of an entirely new project with the guys. For now, I'm simply rearranging my priorities. Videos first, podcasting second. Any thoughts from you guys? Any?
You monster!
No! I love you! You're my best friends.
Is there another anime podcast? Tell me!
No, go start your own anime podcast.
No, I respect it, man. Like, honestly, like, as a creator myself, I get it. I get that, you know, that drive to want to create something timeless and something with value. And this is fun. This is great. But, you know, when you've had a small taste of success, and I understand that, like, this can't measure up to that. Mm-hmm. Especially, maybe if there were 4 Kyles on the panel, maybe we could get into some revolutionary, you know, you could be the Joe Rogan of anime. Of anime, yeah. But, you know, the reason why people really enjoy podcasts is because you get to listen to an unadulterated, unedited conversation with, at least for me, this
Except
is my...
Kyle edits it.
Yeah, he does edit it. True. It's fake news,
No.
Kyle. It's like, you get to listen to experts. Like, that's why I enjoy podcasts, right? I get to listen to experts just go on and on. Mm-hmm. And...
But we only have one expert.
Yeah.
Me.
Kyle is the best. He has a superiority complex. He just wants all of us here so he can feel better than us.
Yeah.
So, I respect it, man. Go chase your...
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Okay.
Yesterday you said tomorrow.
Just do it!
Well, I appreciate your support. So, you know, part of me is unsure of what I want. You know, I could try making videos for a while and discover that I enjoy podcasting more. Part of me finds the idea of the podcast as something we can return to at our own discretion extremely liberating, but unfair to our listeners. I shouldn't say this because I don't want to commit, but maybe we make the podcast a seasonal thing. But I refuse to commit, until I do some more soul searching. If you want to stay updated with me, now is probably the best time to join our Discord. And if you're sad to have less Kyle in your ears, I could possibly start streaming more. I've streamed Overwatch like twice on my personal Twitch channel at Secret Otaku.
I watched it once.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I heard he's good, but he just plays support, so he's lame.
No, I just save everyone.
No, he played he played the new champ.
Oh,
Are they called champions or the heroes?
no, they're heroes.
Yeah, we only like DPS, Kyle. They're the real
You
stars.
can only play Tracer and Genji and Hanzo.
I like the new Hanzo. I'll link that Twitch in the description, and also I think I may eventually stop paying for our SoundCloud account, which means we would
And
no
you're gonna
longer.
start camming. So if you guys want to see some cammed Kyle,
No,
he's gonna be doing that.
Yeah, I'll just wear really low
You
cut
should see
shirts.
his chest hair.
It's pretty.
That's
I'll take.
good.
I'm wearing a button down. I can unbutton a few buttons for
You
you.
guys like banana hammocks? That's the way to go.
It's all he has. I looked in his closet. It's weird.
Hey, they're comfortable and liberating. But anyways, what I was saying on an important note, I think I may eventually stop paying for our SoundCloud account, which means we would no longer be on iTunes. So if that's where you're listening, you probably want to switch over to our YouTube channel, Secret Otaku. But like that's still up for debate, and it might not happen like immediately by any means. So I have a lot of ideas for future content, especially for Patreon subscribers. So let's move on to questions.
Yeah.
All right. This episode's question comes from Quiet Guy. They ask, kind of a question, but also something I really love about anime. I have only watched around 30 shows, so I wouldn't consider myself an expert or anything to that effect. But one of the things that really caught my eye when watching anime for the first time was how it absolutely broke the language barrier. Though I was reading English subtitles, there were so many things that were different from Western media that I thought would catch me off guard or confuse me. However, I still appreciated the story, understood the emotions behind every voice actor's performance, and could even relate with the characters. So I was wondering, did any of you have a different experience when first watching anime? Or was it really no different from other media you watched at the time?
So it's almost kind of unfair because I started watching dubs right when I started. I was like, no subs for me. I'm gonna wait till they're dubbed. I ain't reading shit. Right. So I watched Gurren Lagann dubbed. Watched Full Metal Alchemist dubbed. Cowboy Bebop, which I still hold is better dubbed than subbed. I do agree now that subbing. I really do feel like you can either A, feel the emotion in the voice actors a little bit more, or B, I don't speak the language, so I don't understand. I don't get it if they're screwing up. So it just sounds great all the time, right? That's my fear, is that I don't understand the language enough so that everything they say sounds, perfect and, well acted, and like there's so much emotion behind it, but they could literally be yelling like French toast. Like I technically wouldn't know, right?
I guess that's true.
The way that I see the subbed, just with going off you, like why I think, we've all kind of come to the agreement that subbed is better is because like the creators are listening to the sub and they're like, yes, this is encapsulating what I want it to. When it gets to America, like, I don't know, you kind of...
Right, the creator of the show no longer has a hand in how it sounds.
There's a bunch of executives at Funimation who are like, this is great.
But I think this goes a little bit beyond subs versus dubs. Based on the way Quiet Guy phrased his question, I'm under the impression he got into anime at a relatively older age. If I were to have gotten into anime a little bit later in life, I can envision myself sharing his surprise towards anime's ability to break cultural barriers. However, having stumbled across anime on Adult Swim at 14 years old without even knowing what it was, my experience couldn't be further from his. I've told my anime origin story quite a few times before, but from the moment I set my eyes on the first episode of Bleach, it was life-altering. I had a spiritual revelation, pretty much. It was like nothing I had ever seen before, and it deconstructed my perception of what cartoons could be. Mm-hmm. And while I'm a strong believer in the universal power and appeal of storytelling, there is an unidentifiable quality within Japanese media that only exists in Japanese media. It's an indescribable feeling that I continue to experience only while watching anime. Stories can transcend culture, but culture is always ingrained in stories, which leads me to another listener question, whose name I could not find, I'm so sorry, but I do remember them asking something along the lines of, what are some things that go over the casual anime viewer's head that veteran anime watchers find ordinary? And there are plenty of seemingly weird cultural behaviors that may be hard for the uninitiated to grasp, both in terms of Japanese culture and otaku culture. In terms of Japanese culture, you have the ojamashimasu and the itadakimasu, shrines, bathhouses, etc., but those can all be mostly understood via context clues. It's much more difficult to understand tropes and archetypes like nosebleeds, moe, yashike, sneezing when someone says your name, sexualizing the prepubescent girls, most things we've actually covered on, entire episodes of the podcast.
A girl being seen naked and saying, I can't get married anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I would agree with you, Kyle. Like when I saw the first episode of Gundam 00, like it was pretty life changing, honestly, because I've always had an affinity for deep storytelling with gray morality and stuff like that. Like that was just always something I really would do myself. So to see a medium like that was, with 00, it was this crazy paradoxical, idea. I'm going to use war to end war.
Yeah.
I'm going to use force to end war. And it was just like, holy crap, this is crazy. Like I've never seen any media like this, any storytelling like this. This could only come from an entire culture that thinks so differently than the way we do. And it was just so entertaining, the Gundams and all that stuff. Like
Definitely.
And I think that's one of the things that pushes it beyond a medium for kids, is that it's not even starting, but people are starting to realize more and more that it's, the stories and themes are so mature that it's really just not for kids anymore.
Right. And it really never was, but that's just what we latched onto, that concept, that construct.
I think it's just because in America, cartoons, I guess now there's adult themed cartoons. There's actually a lot
There's
of
a
them.
lot, yeah.
it's been a revolution for sure, with new mediums coming up like Netflix and
But generally, until say a decade ago, I don't think that things like Family Guy and South Park were that big, right? It was mostly cartoons were, made for children, and that's just how it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that the adult themed cartoon was a total gimmick.
Yeah.
All right, there's also, did you see Cunning Dolphin's email topic?
Cunning dolphins.
Did you get an email? Check your email right now.
I can check
Let's do
right
it.
now.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Well, I know I...
we'll do it live. That was great.
Did I get it? You sent this at 7 o'clock. This is... You want me to do this now?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Extra bonus live
Sexy
stream.
Fireman calendar starring Kyle.
Just me.
Kyle.
All right.
That's a big hose.
This is a decently sized email, so...
You're just gonna you have not seen this, right? You were just reading this off the...
Yeah, this came at 7 o'clock.
Let's go.
This is from Cunning Dolphin. Hello, I recently discovered your podcast and have been listening to it at work for the past couple of weeks. I finally caught up today and have a topic I want your opinion on. My recent favorite anime is March Comes In Like a Lion. The Crunchyroll Anime Awards happened a few months ago, where it was surprisingly, but deservingly, nominated for a bunch of awards including Anime of the Year, Best Drama, and Best Continuing Series, which it won. Two other series, Made in Abyss and Rakugo, were also nominated for Anime of the Year and Best Drama. Even though Three Gatsu is one of the best series I've seen,
Sangatsu.
and I really enjoy it, I know Made in Abyss is more fitting of Anime of the Year, and Rakugo is more fitting of Best Drama. I haven't finished Rakugo, so I can't say Three Gatsu is better or worse than it. It's the letter 3 in Gatsu.
Yeah, Sangatsu.
I know,
Sangatsu no Lion.
but the 3 is right there.
Yes, people in Japan pronounce the
Then
symbol,
write it differently.
the symbol 3 as san.
Sorry, I'm white. So I can't say Sangatsu is better or worse. But my point is this. When criticizing anime or shows into genres, we end up judging them based on an ideal for that specific genre, which may demerit a show. Sangatsu and Rakugo may both be masterpieces, but when you say which is the best drama, you go to Rakugo, which is basically the definition of a drama. If you say which is the best slice of life, you may go for something like Usagi Drop or Barakuman. Best sports/game anime, you may go for Haikyuu. You get the point. What are your thoughts on how an evaluation of a show is different when you're considering an element/genre rather than a whole. I know my explanation is wordy, but the thought is all there. Please word it however you see fit. That is a very interesting and complex question that I wish I had more time to process.
Well, what I'm
So
essentially
you guys
getting
talk
from
about
it-
it, and I'm going to read and process my own thoughts.
Well, essentially, the way I'm hearing it is, why is it that we judge things differently when we're saying, do you like this thing as a whole, or do you like it as a drama, or as insert genre here, right? Like, or at least that's how I'm interpreting the question, is essentially like, if I say, do you like Kill la Kill? Versus, do you like, or what do you think is, the best action? What do you think is the best shonen? What do you think is the best, interesting storyline? Like, why does it change your
Right.
perception whenever you're thinking about the genre
So let me
versus thinking about the thing?
think out loud for a second. What you're saying is, with multifaceted shows, which really is every show.
Yeah, nothing's like purely a single.
Well, I mean,
genre.
there are exceptions, but with multifaceted shows, we analyze them and rank them depending on their primary facet. So,
Right. You say clan ad, you're like, all right.
Drama. But it
Like,
also,
but it's also romance.
but
right?
it,
but
Clan
does
Ed
it
has
win romance
a lot
things?
of comedy elements as well. The entire first season is really comedic.
Do you rank One Punch Man as a comedy or an action?
Here, this is what I think. As humans, we have the desire to categorize. Like, it is in our nature to organize and categorize and define things in order to understand them. It is in our blood. And that's something we can't avoid. We cannot think of, it's just not inherent to us to view things, so individualistically, like for our own sanity. And I get this, for years, I would avoid classifying favorites and voicing my opinions on things because it was a fear to solidify my opinions into words as like evidence, as fact, because I would always think in this non-categorical way, or I would try to, because I didn't want to narrow something down to its just core element. Nothing is ever that simple, but for our own sanity, we need to perceive things as that simple. So I don't think it's fair to view Rakugo as purely as a drama. It has a lot of other things going for it. It is its own entity.
But if you boil things down to that specific every time, how would you ever do comparisons? Like it's built into us, right? To compare things to one another. So if I'm not comparing the same thing, if I'm comparing, drama to drama, then I can make a fair comparison, right? Even though I'm just talking about two things, I can say which one I liked better because I'm thinking specifically about the drama elements. But if I'm saying, all right, I'm going to compare a drama with a little bit of comedy that's also kind of a slice of life to drama that's a bit more of a romance with some action elements. Like, it doesn't work, right? You're comparing two...
It does. Anything can be compared. And I completely get what you're saying. And you're thinking, the logical way.
Well, I'm thinking in the sense of, like, if you're doing, say... I'm almost thinking of it like an award ceremony, right? You can't say best... drama that's actiony with a little bit of slice of life elements, and there's like two in there, right?
Right, but I think the point is we should be able to do that.
But you're almost looking at like what best exemplifies a drama, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to
I think you need to stop there. I think we're trying to think what best exemplifies ... You know,
wasn't that what the point of an award show is? Like, isn't that the point of ranking things?
I've brought that up, but I don't know if that's the crux of the question.
Okay. I don't know, but that's
the way I'm thinking of it, is that you have things that are genres, and you're like, all right, when comparing these two things, I would pick this one. But if I have to say in the classification of a drama, this does drama better.
Sure. That makes sense. While something may do drama better, the thing that doesn't do drama as well may have
it might be better anyway.
Yeah.
But does that mean that it's better than the thing that was better at drama?
That's the question, I think. Whoa! Man, mind blown. Let's move on to what we're watching. The type of comedic prowess in Hinamatsuri is something I haven't seen in what feels like a very long time. Last year, Magical Circle Guru Guru proved that fluid animation is a key element in differentiating funny from hilarious, and while Hinamatsuri follows the practice of animation in service of enhancing a joke, it also has a distinct air of poignancy, something that Guru Guru didn't. I think the best comedies are enveloped in tragedy due to the relatability of laughing when faced with despair. We often look back on terrible days we've had or awful experiences that make us feel like we've hit rock bottom and can't help but laugh. And that's what Hinamatsuri is. Amanchu is an absolute joy to have back and makes the perfect addition to my Saturday morning anime. Boku no Hero. Some very large numbers were said.
That
in
was
Boku no Hero.
so fucking hype, dude.
So tell me about it.
There was actually this post. I don't remember where I read it. It might have been the Discord, but apparently there was a post on like the Boku no Hero subreddit, or maybe it was the anime subreddit talking about it. But just talking about the fights from the manga, because obviously it's significantly further along than the anime, and what they would rank the fights in, like in order of the most hype, the one they like the most to the least. So apparently the one that we just saw with the 1,000,000%
Yeah.
was number 4.
Really?
And
Interesting.
apparently numbers 1 and 2 are this season.
Coming up. Yeah.
So I am just like beyond hyped up for what's going on. Like I have been waiting ever since they unveiled the idea of a plus ultra with that All Might fight versus Nomu in the first season. That I have been waiting for literally anyone besides All Might to do it, and seeing that little animation of like the little shooting star kind of like hit a little couple points, like it was so thrilling to finally see that happen from somebody other than All Might. So I was super hyped. I watched that scene like 3 or 4 times.
It was a good scene.
That hat is so fucking stupid.
It was a stupid hat.
With this horns.
So, I don't think we've substantially talked about Darling in the Franxx since before the Ichigo controversy, and a lot has happened since then, including an episode that embodies so much of what so many of us love about anime. There's no easy way to succinctly voice my opinion on Darling in the Franxx as of now. I find it to be extremely divisive, not just within the anime community, but internally as well. There are incredibly satisfying moments that expertly manipulate my emotional state, but I had to work through some poorly constructed, unnecessary, or straight up boring episodes to experience that payoff. Excluding idol anime, there's a surprisingly small amount of anime about music. It's weird to think that there are probably more series about anthropomorphism or the daily lives of high school girls than music itself. Yet, nearly every musical anime I've seen has been arguably phenomenal, or at the very least memorable. Your Lie in April, Kids on the Slope, Bika Euphonium, Beck, No Dame, etc. And while Piano no Mori fits so naturally into this family of exceptional musical anime, at the same time, I feel like I've seen it before. I feel like it's not providing enough originality to elicit widespread attention, despite it being really good. Anime with unconventional art styles, like Hisone to Masotan, are something I always appreciate. Animation is an expressive medium, and creators shouldn't conform to a standardized idea of how characters should be drawn. This biased attraction towards unique art styles can be a little concerning. I worry that I let the visual nature of a show distract me from its narrative, which is why I was weary of my overwhelmingly positive reaction towards Hosaki no Kuni last year, for example. So, looking at Masotan purely in a narrative sense, I think I have an issue with understanding its demographic. It's telling a fairly mature story with militaristic overtones, but opposes that atmosphere with blatantly childish and cartoony dragons. I know that I'm thoroughly enjoying this anime, I'm just unclear on its intended tone. What about Steins Gate?
So, I'm really liking Steins Gate Zero. I think that I was very skeptical coming into it. I was scared that my favorite series was going to get ruined by a story that didn't make sense, came off as a total cash grab, something that was just thrown there because they're like, man, we haven't seen Steins Gate in a while, let's just, do this. But I do not think that it's a cash grab. I think that the story was has been so far well thought out, even though it's very much like a non-canon. It's kind of like a what if story. I think that there's been actual thought given to it. I think every single one of the new characters that has been introduced has been great. I think that the new little scientist and the professor with his like English has been just a joy to watch. Lintalo. I think they've vibed really well with the cast and the three new girls that hang out in the lab from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I do find it strange that like literally every girl in the series has had their bust size like increase like 2x.
That's happened.
They're all just so stacked now, man. I can't get over it.
They grew.
In what, 3 months or
Yeah.
whatever, 8 months. But I like where the story's going. I like that there is that familiar feeling of tension of not really knowing what's going to happen. There's some mystery. There's an air of why is this character showing up again? We know what happened previously. What's happening on the roof? He has that kind of reading Steiner thing go off. And, there's been some not so subtle hints that Russia's doing some timey-wimey stuff. Like, I'm really excited to see where the series is going. And it's great to see at least fake Kurizu again.
I don't know how much I agree with you in you saying that you don't feel like it's that much of a money grab. I feel like it is a little bit pandering. I feel like so much of it, obviously, hinges off the success of its predecessor. It's the same series, so
Yeah.
it should. And I feel like Steins Gate, the original, worked up to earn its worth. And I feel like this is bastardizing it a bit. And I know it's a what-if story, but at the same time, it's just an alternate timeline. And so at the same time, it's also not a what-if story. And I feel like parts of it are really pulling at my suspension of disbelief. Like, the whole kid thing is it's a little much for me.
Yeah, I guess I get that. But then I guess I just like seeing, and I mentioned in the Discord, I like seeing they do what Steins Gate does so well, which is character interaction that doesn't really drive the story forward. It just characterizes them. So the little jokes they're saying against each other, the faces they make, like he gets the dress from the Secret Santa thing,
Sure.
and he stuffs it in the bag, and people are looking at it, right? I love the whimsical nature of the day-to-day in Steins Gate, and I think they've captured that beautifully. But I also like that it also switches from that to crippling depression really fast.
True, it does do that, and that is typical Steins Gate.
And really, I just I don't know, you really feel for him. I think that maybe it is hinging off the success, but since it was so emotional, the first series, seeing these flashbacks and seeing Okabe like break down, really tears at you. Like
and the concept in general of communicating with
all these people.
Yeah.
Like I get what you're saying. Not trying to spoil it too much, but just seeing his like mental breakdown and his lapses of trying to pass off as being a normal college student and going through what he went through.
Yeah. And I do agree with you. I really like the new characters. I really like the tiny scientist girl. So, Wotsukoi continues to be overwhelmingly endearing and represents what I want out of a relationship. Like, I want a cute otaku girlfriend, and I want that. I want it. I want that. So, I like Wotsukoi a lot. Legend of Galactic.
I'm gonna watch Wotsukoi in our next podcast.
The depression sets in.
You should have worked harder, Hunter.
I should have had the topic. It was my fault. I should have been like Kevin and just not shown up.
Legend of Galactic Heroes continues to be great. Lupin is great, and High School DxD is perfect. We would still love to receive all of your questions. You can send them to myself at Secret Otaku on Tumblr, email us at theweeaboos@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you're listening. The podcast is not going away forever, so please continue to send us stuff.
It's like a girlfriend telling his boyfriend or her boyfriend, we're going to take a break.
No, it's not that.
Just a little break. Just want to see other people.
Yeah.
We may do short episodes that consist of us providing our typical thoughtful and drunken responses to your very serious anime quandaries. So you can follow us on Twitch.
A lot of big words for not a big thing.
For when we record live. And because we will be recording less, you can follow my personal Twitch, Secret Otaku, for potential streams. Most importantly, join us on our Discord so you can talk to us whenever you would like. Keep up on opinions of what we're watching and be updated on all our future projects. Remember, I may be discontinuing our SoundCloud and iTunes service, so if you don't want us to disappear from your feed, it's crucial that you switch over to our YouTube page, Secret Otaku. All links are in the show notes. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon if you like what we do, or if you want to, encourage us to do things in the future. Now that the podcast is more flexible, I'm toying with a lot of ideas, some of which involve exclusive Patreon content. I need to talk to Hunter about that because I feel like...
Are we doing that calendar?
The sexy one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you just gave bad ideas to our Discord people. Like that is, they will pay for that. So, and more than anything, please share the podcast because word of mouth is the only way we get new listeners. We want to thank you, Dutch, for our intro, Kugata for our outro, and like always, get
Drunk.
And
anime. We'll see you guys next time.
We did it.
You can catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho in a tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit. Catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho in a tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit.